All righty, today is a special day. We're going to be talking about a topic that is a little bit more serious than what we've been doing. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And for that reason, I wanted to kind of touch over something that we all have to deal with at some point in our life, whether it's grieving a loved one or a child, a parent, whatever the case might be. As you can see, we have a national helpline that's going across the bottom. So if you're ever in need, please feel free to give them a call. Or if you just feel like you just need someone to talk to, we do have mental health counselors on our board that can help you. We can guide you in the right direction. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And people deal with all kind of issues. Doesn't have to necessarily have to be about death, but it can be anything that you're dealing with. If um, just have financial issues and you feel like you're getting ready to lose it because you're not going to have nowhere to go. All those kind of things affect us and how we live our lives. And this is a platform for single Christians. And a lot of times, without having a spouse, we don't have people that we can turn to. And we deal with things just like anybody else. People, kind of wonder, if mental health is mentioned in the Bible. It is. Elijah, after he had just got through defeating, with God's help, 450 prophets of Baal, he went into depression because Ahab went and told Jezebel, and she was coming after him. If you know you have that kind of power, why would you sink into depression? That means it's real. And I think God has allowed that to be in the Bible so that we know that we're not alone in this journey. We're not alone with different issues that we have. So not only do we turn to God, but He's given therapists the knowledge to be able to help us as well. It says, seek the counsel of many. You have to seek counsel and get that help. So today we're going to bring on someone special to me. She is one of the parishioners at the church that I go to. She's one of the first ones to kind of guide me through when I got there. And I thank her so much for coming on and just being a guest. So I'm going to bring her on, and I thank her for having the courage to come on and speak candidly about this particular topic. So we're bringing Miss Sophia on.
Hey.
Hello, hello. And Miss Sophia is Sophia Kimberly on Facebook. If you ever want to reach out to her, and I'm sure she can give you some guidance as well. Okay, Miss Sophia, you want to introduce yourself and tell us about your two sons?
Yes, I am. As you know, my name's Sophia, and I live in here in South Carolina, and I have two boys. Well, I had two sons. I gave birth to two sons, I should say, and I lost my oldest boy in Jamoa in 2022, and I have one son now. His name is Shy, and if anybody does know him, he's not shy, but he's very quiet. I should say that. So, but yeah.
Okay, okay. So I know you said in 2022 you lost your son, and
hmm
how what happened in that particular situation?
How did it happen?
Yes.
Okay. My son passed from fentanyl. And actually, I had never even heard of fentanyl, didn't even know what it was. That Sunday, I was called over and it was an accidental overdose, is what they said that it was. That's what the coroners ruled his death as.
Okay. And we know that there's a national crisis
Yeah.
for the overdose of fentanyl. That's why the police officers actually have some sort of epi-like pen to kind
hmm
of resuscitate them if they're getting to that point where where they've overdosed. And so we know this is a national crisis, and so many times things happen. And like she said, she didn't even know what it was, and I just happened to hear about it
hmm
once I got here in South Carolina because I didn't know that it was a crisis. There's other drugs. There are other drugs also that they consider, an epidemic where they kind of have those pens to help resuscitate them if they do. It's like the opioids and different things like that. They can kind of help that person bring them back or whatever. And so, because of that, we know that a lot of times we don't when we haven't heard of things at first. The first thing I know I did was like, what is that? I wanted to research,
hmm
figure out what it is, how does this drug work? Where did it originate from? Those kind of things, because you just don't know. I had a cousin to kind of lose it because he had some marijuana that was laced with what's that stuff, the embalming fluid. He had that, and it kind of took him out mentally.
Mhm.
And so I know those things affect people in different ways. Some people can handle it a little better, but in all cases, you know, don't look down on people for doing that. You never know what they're going through. That's why we have May as Mental Health Awareness Month, to kind of help people that are going through issues, so we can, talk about ways that you can kind of offset that, or you can help them through those
Mhm.
situations. Back in 2007, I lost my brother. And as a single Christian, my sisters had their husbands, my parents had each other, and I was by myself. How did you deal with that loss of your son?
It was hard, because actually one of the things when my son passed, it was around my birthday. And my birthday was a couple days later, and I had already planned a trip to go. And, I seeked, wise counsel, and they said, you should still go. And I did. But it was coming home, and my youngest son was still living with me at the time, and he went back to work, and everything was still in the house. And I took that day, and I remember I cleaned up everything, got rid of anything that reminded me, the flowers and, different things like that. I still have his clothes. I put his clothes away in a closet. But I think it was very hard because everything I was here by myself. And I did have family that I could call, very, very supportive family. But it's the nights, the days during the day when people are at work, because my family, I have a very good family that would check on me and call me, but everybody else was going back to work and I was still at home. And, people did call, but sometimes, even though you get kind of lonely, you still don't want to always talk on the phone, you
Right,
know
right,
and I can't even say you always want company. How you doing? Or, sometimes you don't even want to be asked how you doing or anything. Can I do something for you? All the text messages and things like that. So what I did is I remember I called my manager. I was like, hey, listen, I want to come back to work. And I went back to work, and I remember I told him, I said, but when I come back, I'm coming back to do a job. And I would really appreciate if no one talked to me about it. I don't want to talk about it at all. I just want to come back to work, and stuff like that. And so that's what I ended up doing. I even remember his funeral was that Saturday. And I remember my mom got up. She was like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm going to church. I went to church the very next day. I needed to be there. Um, I needed to be surrounded. I needed that at that particular time. Um, just to get back. I think for me, it was getting back on with life as quickly as I could. I'm not saying that was the right thing at the time, but I needed to get back out there. And I went to church. I was at church the very next day. In
wow.
fact, I greeted that day. I greeted,
Okay, and you have a beautiful smile. You greet rather
Thank
well.
you. Thank
Love
you.
seeing your face. And people deal with grief in many different ways. And you're saying that that's not the right thing to do, but that was the right thing for you to do. I
Hmm.
know my cousin, she lost two of her children and
Hmm.
her nephew in one accident. Well, actually, no, she lost three in one
Hmm.
accident. And so she went right back to work. And people were like, "What are you doing?" She just, because I guess she was saying she had to stay busy,
Hmm.
focus on that. And so, however, people, I tell people, don't tell people how to grieve,
Exactly right. You're right.
because
Hmm.
I mean, you don't want a person to go into a hole, but you don't want to tell them how to grieve. That's enough crying, or you need to go ahead and do. You hush. Let
Hmm.
the person grieve the way they want to grieve, and be there for them if they need you. I always tell people I am available, and if you say don't talk about it, then that's exactly what you mean. When you're ready to talk, then you'll talk.
Right.
Wow. It's amazing how life comes at you, and especially with something so unexpected. and
Right.
people want to try to tell you, you're trying to navigate through that time period yourself as to what am I doing? What's going on? You got so many questions, I'm sure, that were going through your mind.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
it's kind of hard to listen to people talk about what you should and should not do. So I applaud
Mhm.
you for taking the courage to getting the courage to say, this is how I want to do it.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. I honestly, I had, the trip was planned, like I said, and it was already paid for. And me and the coworker, we both share our birthdays in March, and I was going back and forth, and I had some people that said, "I can't believe you're leaving," because like I said, his funeral was that Saturday, and we left early Monday morning to go. I went to church Sunday, and my trip we left early Monday morning. Everything was already paid for, everything was already planned, time off work and everything, and it was the best thing for me at the time. I thought about not going, and even my youngest boy was like, "Mom, you need to go. You need to go." And I feel like that was the time that I really needed away
Mhm.
from a lot of, just take me some time. And we were at the beach, and I would go out on the beach, and I journaled and things like that. And that I needed those days. I needed those. We were gone 5 days, and I needed those 5 days to get away.
Well, great, good for you. And I'm glad your son was there to support you and say, Mom, go ahead, because your kids know you, you know.
Hmm.
And so if he gave you permission, you didn't need anybody else's, you
Yeah.
know. And so I'm glad you did do that. You made that decision for yourself. And sometimes, did you have anybody else that you talked to periodically after all of that?
I would again, like I said, I have a good family. My cousin Nosha, she would come in and stop in a lot, and I could call, but I can't recall just picking up the phone saying, "Hey, I need to talk," because I had so many people, that were always calling to check on me and stuff like that, which was so appreciative. I know our house was so packed that my cousin was even like, you know what, we need to get you in a hotel. So me and my son went and actually stayed in a hotel, just to get some rest. And I was like, people will really hear from me a lot. And I think because of the person that I am, I didn't know how to shut it down. I didn't know how to say, "Hey guys, I'm tired. I don't want to talk about this anymore," because that's one thing that I did learn when somebody passes away. Sometimes we feel like we have to entertain people when they come to visit, you know, um, and people have to be mindful, even though it's out of the goodness of your heart. You're really thinking you want to let this person, because I've been guilty of it. Let me go over here and check on this person. I got to get to this person. But sometimes that person is tired. We got to be mindful. I think that next Monday, he passed that Sunday, my house was packed, which is totally fine. But that next day, it started at 9 o'clock in the morning, just dropping in, and then it went all the way up until that night. And I was drained, and I hadn't even went to the funeral home. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to even begin to plan a funeral. I knew nothing. Um, so it's tough, but I did have my cousin that I could call on. And that is something that I had to learn as well, because I had a friend that actually asked me, she said, "Do you need anything?" And I said, "No." She said, "But would you know how to ask if you did?"
Oh, wow.
And I didn't.
Because you're the giver.
So I had to learn that's been one of the things through his death. I had to learn how to ask for help, and allow people to help me, because I did not know. I did not know how to do it.
Wow, that was interesting. I never thought about what she said to say that to a friend or a loved one,
Mhm.
because sometimes people don't know and
Mhm.
they don't know how to express it. And so when that person gives it to you that way, hey, would you know how to ask? You gotta kind of have to
Mhm.
double take it, or second guess and like,
Mhm.
really, And so I applaud her for being there for you in that way, to help you through that difficult time.
Yeah.
People say that time heals the wound. Does it get easier, or is it how do you deal with it from day to day?
It does not get easier. I think we learn how to, I've learned how to live. I've learned how to be thankful as well. And what I mean by being thankful is some people have not had the chance to give birth to a child. I had him for 33 years. I learned a lot from him. Um, and I wouldn't say that it gets easier. I think that we learn how to smile and we learn how to get through and get by, but I don't think it gets easier. Only because of the grace of God and my walk with God that I am able to smile and say, you know what, God, you know what's best. We all have to leave here, and in this case, yeah, my son left before me. I will leave one day as well, but no, it doesn't get easier.
Okay, and let me ask you a question because you just mentioned something that I wanted to kind of bring up. You know, how people come to you, God knows best. At the time that that happens, you don't necessarily want to hear that. You make that determination on your own. And
Hmm.
that's what I would think. Is that was that the case with you, or did people say things that were a little bit offensive or a little bit unexpected that you had to kind of push back and catch yourself so you didn't get upset because you were already grieving, and that process
Hmm.
in and of itself is hard.
Yeah, I think the thing that bothered me the most was the inconsideration of getting text messages asking you what happened. Um, I think, and you'd be surprised, people in your inbox, hey, what happened? It was sudden. Was he sick, or things like that? Instead of thinking somebody just lost their child, let me just say a prayer. Even if you don't know what to say, just say a prayer. Don't
Right.
say anything at all. Um, and no, you don't. I was able to speak at his funeral, and because my son went to church that Sunday before,
Mm-hmm.
and the way that the whole entire situation was awesome because he was like, Ma, he reached out to me, he was like, Ma, good morning. And I said this at church, I felt like, oh God, Jamal was about to ask me to cook him something, he's in my inbox early this morning and texting me, so what's he want? What's he, the week before it was a chicken pot pie. So what is it this week? And so that's what I thought. He said, I'd like to go to church with you, um, like old times. And I was like, okay. So anybody that knows Jamal knows to tell him a different time because he was going to be late. So I told him, I remember telling him that I would be there like 9:15. And I got there around 9:30, 9:35 to pick him up. And when I picked him up, um, he put his finger out like, Mom, give me a minute or whatever. So which I did, and I'm so glad because any other time I'd be getting on him like, I'm coming, you should have been ready. We were able to go to church together and we had an amazing time that day. The only thing I regret that day is we didn't get pictures. We did not get any pictures that day, but we had an amazing day together. And um he came over, got a plate, and went back home, and I didn't get to see him, before he passed. And then the next Sunday he was gone. So that's what I was able to be thankful for. But you still go through, after everything's said and done, you still go through like, Lord, you know, um, my prayer was for my boy to be healed. My prayer was for my boy to be saved. My prayer was for my son to be at peace. And I remember months down that I broke down so bad. And I actually was in my closet. And I have a prayer closet. And it has the things that I want for my boys and my family and things like that. And I remember looking over there and seeing that. And I have one for Jamal to be at peace. So I said, okay, Lord, it wasn't answered my way, but it was answered.
That's a great perspective. That's a great way to look at it because we like to tell God how to do things, but if your
Mhm.
prayer is that He be at peace and God did it the way He did it, and you came to that decision that God knows best, and then that happened, that breakdown was necessary, and people don't realize you have tear ducts. You have emotions for a reason, and God allows you to release that stress. And
Mhm.
I personally, I know hindsight is 2020, but I personally think from what you just said, because I did not know that, that was all that pent up emotion that you kind of put to the side to cater to other people because
Mhm.
you are a servant. You are you're an upbeat, positive person, and you just couldn't understand it. And sometimes we don't say that, but we know that that's a part of life, like you said. And to get to that point where it just like, did this really just happen? It's kind of like surreal initially.
Mhm.
I mean, that's my perspective from
Mhm.
losing my brother. And it's like, did this really happen? And so those emotions when because I've done that months down the line, and then I just break down. But I'm usually by myself to do what I have to do. So um, I thank you for sharing your story. And Black Love United also, said thank you so much for sharing your story.
Mhm.
Um, it's I don't know. I don't. I know, like you said, we all gonna have to deal with it at some point. And I know they say it's harder to deal with losing a child than it is a parent or anybody else because some people you expect to go before you, but not your child. And I
Right.
knew my mom when we lost our brother, she was saying that was hard. And so you said that it doesn't get easier. What are some of the things that you do to continue, you know, uh, continue his legacy, so to speak, or tell us some good stories about Jamoa.
Okay. Um, I've learned to make some of the I've already was making dishes that he loved, but some days I'm just missing him. I make a dish that he loved. And I'm able to talk to him, talk about him more. At work and stuff like that, the girls, the anniversary of his death, they dressed up in royal blue because that was one of his colors. He loved royal blue. This may not work for some people, but it does work for me.
Mhm.
I will go out to the graveside and I'll play some music. Um, the one by CC Winans, The Goodness. I'm gonna tell
Yes.
you, I did not want to hear that song for the longest. I didn't want to hear it because I'm going through, and even though I was going to church and things like that, I was still hurting. And but now I go out there and I clean it off or whatever and play the music and stuff like that. And then the other thing is Jamal left me with some beautiful girls, and both of them have his personality. They have things. Kaya runs like him. Life has taken up basketball like him. So to look at them, sometimes I'm like, wow, I see your daddy in you, the things that you do. And just loving sports and stuff like that. We didn't even know Kaya could run like that. Her daddy could run. And so those are some of the things. And sometimes I'll pick up the phone and I'll call Shy and I'll say, man, I swore I just seen somebody that dressed just like your brother. And sometimes me and Shy would sit there and Jabor was a mess now. He would do little things and it would make us laugh though. And we always called him Moa. I don't even know how to really say Jamoa, but we called him Moa. That was my name for him.
Mhm.
And I would be like, that mower, when he was, Shy, I remember Shy said one day, he's like, Mom, he said, I wish that he could have made it, even if he said, sometimes I wish, he would just would have made it. I said, but, I do too, but I wouldn't want him to be in a bad way. And, we said, yeah. He said, yeah, I wouldn't want him. He said, you know what, Mom? And no matter what, nothing was going to get him down. Even if he was in a wheelchair or whatever, he would have been everywhere. We'd have to be trying to catch up with him. And, because he was a social butterfly. I could be in the car. We could be riding together and I could be in the car with him. And he was taking me to work one day. I'm like, what is he doing? In there talking to everybody, social butterfly. I'm like, I got to go to work, things like that. And knowing, like me and Shy both always talk about never on time, never. I don't care what it was. We was always gonna have to wait on him for something. He tell me, "Ma, I'm around the corner." He was still in Greenville,
Woo.
so those are things that we love about him, and and the way he dressed and stuff like that, and it. he loved his clothes and his shoes and stuff like that. And I know sometimes when I'm at work and I see somebody, they write left-handed because he was left-handed, and the way he turned his pencil in, a lot of times I look at people, I'm like, how they write, I see somebody walking down the street and I'd be like, wow, my son would wear that outfit. So now I can, talk about him and smile and think about some of the things he did, and, and stuff like that to make us laugh and a lot. And if he was to be able to give me a phone call, he would say "Ma straight." That's
Wow.
what he would say. He would say "Mom straight." That's one of the things he never wanted me. Even though as a parent, when you know your child is out there, you still stress. But I remember him and Shy keeping secrets from me. And I remember one time, he was a good brother because he would not let Shy get. He didn't want Shy to get in certain things, And I remember one day I was looking for Shy, and I called him. I kept saying, "Moa, do you know where your brother's at?" He said, "Ma, I'll give him a call." And he called Shy, and he said, "Ma, he'll be home in about 30 minutes." And I said, "Okay, where is he at?" He said, "Ma, he'll be home in 30 minutes." But I said, "Where is he?" He said, "Ma, I said he'd be home in 30 minutes." To this day, I still don't know where Shy was, but he was home in 30 minutes. you know? So it was things like that. They didn't tell on each other. And I know one time I was, I told Jamal, I said, "Listen, do not come in this house late. If you come in and I lock this door, you're not getting in," because he had lost his key. And I went to work the next day and I seen all these rocks on my roof. And I called Shy. I said, "Shy, did you let your brother in last night?" He said, "Yes, ma'am." so
Oh,
he had threw rocks at the obviously at the window and stuff like that. But it's things like that now that can get me through. And I know that there was some, and speaking of mental health, there's some things that we don't always go get help for. And there were some things that Jamal went through in his childhood when I was married, things that he went through later on in life. Some things was brought on by himself, but he didn't go get the proper help. And the addictions and things that we try. I don't know anything about that. I can only know from what I've heard and what I've seen. But sometimes you don't always know somebody's fighting with addiction because they can look perfectly fine.
yes.
They don't look like they're fighting with an addiction. If somebody would have said that my son was trying those harder drugs, I would have been like, "No, he's not," because I don't see that.
Hmm.
So, but now, addiction, I don't judge anybody that's on addiction, that has an addiction, because there's all kind of addictions.
Right.
And I just pray for them because it's got to be hard to know that something that can kill you. Fentanyl is like putting a gun to your head because you never know. You never know, if you're gonna make it. You
Right.
don't know. You can however they do it, whatever they do, however it's, taken, it could be in pill form and things like that. You don't know. You might make it today. You might have got away with it today, but you may not get away with it tomorrow.
Yes, that's true. That is so true. I know they say that, and I don't know anybody personally other than what you just told me, but they say drinking is the same way. Your body size determines how much
Hmm.
how much intake of alcohol that your body can
Hmm.
hold before you kind of poison your system. And so it's the same way with drugs. Nobody knows, nobody knows. And you can't judge a person. Like you said, there are things that they're dealing with that sometimes they're not able to talk about because they're figuring, well, I don't know how they're going to look at me. They're going to look at me differently. And
Hmm.
so that's the reason we have that national helpline on the bottom screen, because if you can't talk to a family member or you can't talk to a friend, you can always reach out to the number below to get help anytime, day or night. Um, they know how to deal with it. And people that love you because they love you. There's
Hmm.
no rhyme or reason. And for a parent, it's unconditional love. Doesn't matter what you do. As my child, and I'm sure as your child, we would do whatever for our children
Absolutely.
because we love them. you know,
Mhm.
and we look at things that they do that's a little different because see with social media and all these other different things out there, they're having to deal with that we didn't have to deal with, you
Mhm.
know. And so it's a little harder for them to feel like they can talk because of um, being judged, so to speak. And so as a parent, I'm not going to judge you. I'm glad that my daughters are able to talk to me. My son,
Mhm.
that's a little different. But
Mhm.
you know, I can appreciate that statement. And so, do you have any other suggestions for anyone going through mental health issues?
Go talk. Go talk to someone. I wanted to. I went to. I started going to a therapist. He passed in February 22, and I remember being at work, and I was like, okay, this is above me. I need help. And that God is there too. And stuff. But I need to go talk to someone other than family. And so I have a therapist. I did look for an African American therapist for myself personally
Hmm.
because of our culture, you
Right.
know, my
Hmm.
culture. Um, First, to learn how to ask somebody for help. That was my start. And I remember the first day I just probably was all over the place when I went in there, and I know I went over my hour, you know, but go talk to someone. Take care of yourself. There is nothing wrong with you back in the day, if you were saying you were seeking a therapist, you might have been called crazy or unstable or there's something wrong. No, there's not. There's something wrong if you don't go get help.
Right. Right.
Go do that. And I would go see her after work. And I'm also, that's self-care,
It is.
because like you said, family's going to be there, family's going to hug on you, but you want your therapist is going to be honest as well, but your therapist is also going to work with you on getting you better. I remember her telling me about a book, and she was like, hey, there's a book that I would like you to read, but read you're not ready for it right now, but maybe get it later and read it later, and stuff like that. I even told her that, there's times that um you know, the journaling. She said, journal, do that, all the things. And so she gave me a lot of suggestions and things that I could do to
Hmm.
make me feel better. But please, you know, nothing's wrong with you to go seek help. Nothing, find you somebody. And if you go to one person and that person's not for you, then go to somebody else. Because
Right.
every therapist, just because they got that degree, every therapist is not for you.
Mm-mm.
Because I went to a therapist years ago after I was divorced. And again, like I said, sometimes you don't want family to know what you're doing. So I remember going to Starbucks really quick because my mom was here at the house and I said, I'm just going to go to Starbucks before my therapist. I go see my appointment. It was a male. And I went in there and I remember telling him, that this was new. I was recently divorced. And I said, hey, I worry about being able to take care of my boys, and things like that. And he was like, well, if you're just recently divorced and you're worried about your finances, he started adding up. I was like, what are you doing? He started adding up on his calculator. He said, you're going to Starbucks every day. If you go to Starbucks every day and you're spending this and you're this is your financial problem. And I said, you know what? You can't help me because this is what I did. My mother is at home. I could not share that I was coming here to a therapist today. So I stopped by Starbucks to kill some time.
Hmm.
So he had told all this stuff, and I said, but I didn't. I never went back. I never went back to him because he wasn't for
I
me.
don't blame you. I don't blame you.
So when you go to that therapist, if you go in there and that person is not for you, pay your deductible and leave and find somebody who is good for you.
Right. Now you said you wanted someone that was African American. Is it also important that they're Christian as well? Because that
Yes.
was my
Mm-hmm.
thing. Because
Mm-hmm.
the world has standards, and they'll tell you things that are okay that goes against what the word is saying. And so I went to a therapist. The
Mm-hmm.
the first therapist I ever went to, I saw somebody die in front of me at work,
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to her, and she was good. She allowed me to talk and everything, go through EAP. And so you go through there, try to get all your little help. And I went a few times, and shortly thereafter, I had a heart attack. So of course, I didn't go back. But when I went back again, I had somebody else, and it was important that they were a Christian as well,
Right.
because they're going to tell you the truth that's intertwined with their profession as well as what the Bible says. So
Mm-hmm.
that's good. That's good.
Mm-hmm. And she did just that. And also she was able to relate to me somewhat because her mother had passed, but she was telling me her feeling the stories that her mom had told about losing two children. Her mom had lost two boys, and she said, she was able to share that with me and share some stories that her mom told her and how she felt, but also how she trusted and leaned on God as well.
That's good. And that's what I'm saying. Ain't nothing wrong with praying, because prayer does change things. It,
Mm-hmm.
however, sometimes it goes a little bit beyond that, where you have
Mm-hmm.
somebody to mentally help you on this earth. You know what I'm saying? I mean, God can be there, support you, and He's always going to do it. He's never going to leave us, never forsake us. But in our minds, because we kind of in a box, so to speak, about how we feel, we want somebody to get us out that box. That's the best
Exactly.
analogy I
Mm-hmm.
could use. And that person can, and then you can continue to live your life, and then still keep praying and asking God to help you as well. So that's
Mm-hmm.
good that she was able to do that for you.
Yeah.
And all the memories you have, your son sounds a lot like my brother that passed. I only had one, but he was very comical. He loved to dress. He could be, I mean, he was fashionable. So those things, we think about stupid stuff that he did, and we can't do nothing but laugh, because he was the clown in our family, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
always good. And that's how I keep him alive. And I mean, he might be gone from this earth, but he's forever in my heart. And I
Absolutely.
will always remember the good things. There's not a time that he's done anything to me personally that caused me to be like, boy, because I remember the last, he passed away in July, and he and I went on a trip in April together, because we were both divorced. And so we went to Atlanta and hung out. And I mean, he taught me some things, and
Mm-hmm.
was saying, Tanja, don't go to church looking for a man. Men go to church looking for good women. They ain't trying to do right. God can bless you to meet a man. He would just say things like that. And we had a serious conversation, something that I never knew about him, because I always thought he just wanted to be single. He'd gone through his divorce. He's doing, but he was like, no, I want to get married again. And so just remembering the fun times. And I had a guy call me, because the first night we got there so late that he said, I'm just going to stay in the hotel with you, and then I'll just go. And so the guy called me like early morning. He said, don't you ever answer the phone. He was checking to see if you was with somebody. So he was giving me pointers that's been helpful
Yeah.
now. And so I was like, because he knows guys. And so I remember things like that. That'll always stand out. And one of the last things he said was always, always look out for my children. Now, you know how
Mm-hmm.
you look back and it's like, he didn't know he was getting ready to pass.
Mm-hmm.
We were having a conversation about our children, and I have children. Well, I have a child that just really connected to him, and he would talk to her when she would act up, and his son vice versa. So, just one of those things that I always remember. I can only do so much, but
Mm-hmm.
just in saying all that, he was like, I'm so proud of you. Just those things that he was saying when we were sitting in the garage, because he was actually living with me. I had asked him to move in with me because
Mm-hmm.
both of our kids were getting ready to go to college. And so just one of those things that just kind of make you know that even though that was the last time I saw him, I was the last one to see him live, and I had to break the news to everybody when the police came to my house. I'll always remember the positive.
Mm-hmm.
It was all about family. And like I said, he was into fashion. Mr. GQ gonna come in there, and everybody gonna know he's there. He's gonna make
Mhm.
you laugh. Um, and those memories will, like I said, will never go away.
Mhm.
Go away. So just the fact that you saying he wants you to cook certain meals,
Mhm.
I'd like to taste one of those one day.
I do chicken pot pies. And those are things like I remember the first time I made chicken pot pies after he passed. I bawled and I bawled because I'm so used to taking it around the corner, to him. And I remember he liked stuffed bell peppers, and I had made them that week. And me and him kept making because Shy don't eat stuff like that. But me and Jamal would try things. But
Mhm.
those are things that I can laugh at, because I remember him, calling me and saying, "Ma, what you got over there? You got any more?" And one thing about him, he wasn't, he always had somebody around, and Mom, my friend over here, or whatever. Can you bring some for him too? And I was like, "No, I'm not feeding everybody," but that's just the way he was.
Yeah,
Can you bring something over, and stuff. I was like, okay, that's fine, but those are things that I do love. I will, that's what I miss the most is going around that corner. And I think Mother's Day passed when Mother's Day was last week, I did good. We had the conference Saturday.
uh-huh,
Conference was good. I prepared food. I did all that stuff, and I made potato salad last Sunday. And I remember waking up Sunday, and that's the thing about grief. You can't control that.
right.
You can't control that. And people that are, I think that was one thing, and I kept saying, "Why am I crying like this? Why am I crying like this?" It was a rough day. Mother's Day was rough. I think it was more rough this Mother's Day than it was last year,
Oh,
um, and stuff. So that's one of the things that I've learned. It's okay
yeah,
because even at when they start playing the songs at church that Sunday, I was fine. I woke up that morning and it was like I was crying all over the place. And I got myself together, went to church, and thought everything was going to be good there. Was good for a while. Then I started crying, but I've allowed myself that grace to cry because
absolutely.
I'm allowed to do that. And
You
I should do that and not keep it because I think when I did go to my therapist, it had balled up so much because I was trying to be strong because I didn't want people to worry about me. If I cried in front of my mom, if I cried for my cousins, they were going to be worried about me. And I didn't want to stress anybody out. So I didn't allow myself to cry.
but then
I
that
tried to hold it
stresses you out.
in.
You have to be a priority in your life and go ahead and do what you said you did. I know we care about our family. And so for me, I've had to learn that I got to take care of Tanja
Hmm.
because I do worry about other people. And for all my life, I've had to be strong, going through a divorce and different things like you mentioned. It affects us,
Hmm.
because then here it is, that hat come off as the wife, but then we got to be that mother and anything else that child might need that ordinarily that other person would be there, and they're not. So it's like, okay,
Hmm.
I got to be this for everybody, and it gets to be overwhelming. So Tanja takes care of Tanja, and I'm considerate,
Right.
but I need to take care of me. And
Hmm.
everybody else, they'll deal with it because they love you and they'll be there for you, whether you're hurting or whether you're doing whatever. And I see I'm sweating, y'all. Ooh, ooh, sorry. Ooh, I'm having a hot flash. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean that, but for that to happen.
That's okay.
But
We have them.
yes, at our age, because we're about the same age. So it's one of
Hmm.
those things that I love to see people take care of themselves.
Hmm.
I love maturity when you're able to express yourself and do things for yourself. That comes with maturity and growth. But
Hmm.
with you, I would have never. How do I say? Well, I wouldn't have ever known that you had gone through what you did based on my interactions with you. You're always so bubbly. You're always so positive.
Yeah.
You always have something positive every time. Oh my God, Tanja, hi, you're this today, you're that. It's like, oh my gosh, she's full of energy, And so I was like, okay. So and then you would text me, are you okay, sis? You were checking on me. And I didn't know you had things that were going on in your life. But then as we grew a little closer, I realized, we started talking, and then I realized she's going through a lot. How do you, because me, before, if I was upset or something happened to me, I shut,
Mm-hmm.
I shut down. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to be around anybody. But I've learned to express myself and make myself a priority and do self care, like you said. And so I did the counseling. I did the traveling, things like that, to keep my mind off of things. Will it ever go away? Absolutely not, because that memory is there. But like you said, remembering the positive things, the things that
Mm-hmm.
liked or that person did, things about the person puts a smile on your face.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can kind of move forward, but you're always going to have a space in your heart for that person.
Mm-hmm. And when you were saying that you and your brother were having conversations, as I went back and I was going through the things that when I start really, like, I felt like, I don't want to say anger, but I just felt like, just hurt, like, Lord, why'd you allow this?
Mhm.
Um I remembered, like, that February, because I was getting ready to go, on my birthday trip, and so I joined a boot camp. And so anybody that knew Jamal was a night owl. We always told you, Jamal, don't try to work first shift. Work thirds on, because you don't go to bed. But so, and I'm a morning person, so I was going to boot camp, and I had to be there at 5 in the morning. We start boot camp. I'd leave here at 4:45, go over there. And so he stayed close to me, so I would go around the corner and talk to him in the mornings before work. And I'd get over there about 5:45, something to 6. And I remember that last month of all the conversations that we were having. And he was always talking about God. And he was like, Mom, I remember him saying, God's all up in here in me. And I I thank God. And what's also gotten me through is because God gave that to me. Some mothers don't get that.
Right.
Some mothers don't get to know and get to talk to their children. And then, for him to be able to say, Ma, he's outside and it's dark and stuff like that. And he's like, God is all up in here. He is all up in here. And I remember we went around the corner to the store one day, and he said, he knows I love Mary J. Blige, and Mary J. Blige came on that song, Good Morning Gorgeous. And he said, Ma, that's my song right there. He said, you know, I always want my girls to look in the mirror and say that to themselves, Good Morning Gorgeous, and
Wow.
believe that. And, there's so many conversations that we were able to have during that month. And I feel like God gave me that opportunity. And that's why I'm thankful, because he shared so much with me. And I was able to say, he laughed at me because I tell him what I learned in boot camp. And he's like, Mom, you something serious. You need to go home, go to work, and stuff like that. You something serious now, going to work or whatever. And I think those are the things that a lot of parents don't get. But I think the thing the most that he's like, when I went to camp, when Daddy sent me to camp, basketball camp, and they gave us the opportunity and we got baptized and things like that. He said, Mom, I gave my life to God, and I know what God's done, and he's all in here.
Wow.
And and that's one thing, if I could get a phone call from him, he would say I'm straight.
That's awesome.
That's what he would say. I'm straight.
Well, you just seem like you have a close relationship with your sons, and so it's not every mother that can say that. You know,
Mhm.
I only have one, and we're not close. We talk on occasion. Um, he feels like I don't understand him, and so I'm glad you had that opportunity to have a close relationship with your son, and to have those kind of memories where
Mhm.
you could laugh or he would call upon you to do certain things. So it's pretty awesome. It's pretty
It
awesome.
will come. It will come, because I'm going to tell you something. It hasn't always been that way, but I've just always been that mom. Moa, my youngest son, would get on me and say, Mom, what are you doing? I don't care if sometimes it'd be 2 or 3 weeks that he sometimes would drop off the face of the earth. I would go find him, and I would be all in everywhere. My son would be saying, "Mom, why are you driving down the places?" And I would go, and my son is so funny. He had street names. He was Jizzle, he was JB, he was J Smooth, and I'd say, "Is Jizzle here? Is J Smooth, JB here?" And they would be like, "My Dukes is here," and they'd always have respect for me. But as long as I seen his face, and I think at that time, because he was stressing me out too, but it got to the point where, okay, I guess he said, I'm stressing my mom out. I'm not going to say I still didn't worry about him, but at least I said, please just check in with me.
Right.
I think that was one of the hardest things. Like sometimes I lost my phone because we was close enough that I remember I went and grabbed him a phone one time. I was able to get in his phone because I knew his passwords. We probably should be more, do harder passwords, but I knew his passwords and stuff, and because there's been times I haven't talked to him for a month or, and that's hard, so if any kids or young men or women listening to this, don't do that to your parents
Right. We
because
work.
that's so hard. You just want a phone call will help you sleep, at night, don't do that. Don't go 3 4 weeks a month without hearing from them because I'd let 2 weeks, maybe not three, and I was going around Spartanburg County looking for him. I was
Wow.
gonna find him.
Average time that I would go and be, like text and, and even if he don't respond, if I see that he's read it, I'm good, because then I know he's okay. Um,
Mhm,
so we go through things as parents,
mhm,
and I don't know why it is with the sons a little different. My daughters, as you saw them at the conference last Saturday, drove up Friday to see me Saturday and left Sunday morning, early Sunday morning. And it was Mother's Day, but they had to get back to, my one daughter had to get back to her husband because they had an event to go to.
mhm.
But I appreciate them coming up and they
Right.
do look on me. And that was the first time ever in my life where my children left and I teared up. I have never done it. My daughter's like, "Oh, look at mom. She's sad. Mom, you getting ready to cry?" And I just started walking in the house because I was like, "No, they're not going to see me." But I guess they know now. But it was hard. It was hard
Mhm,
because you know when I say prayer changes things, I love the
mhm,
way God works. We don't fully understand it, but He
mhm,
does. And as life goes on, we tend to adapt, not fully forgetting, but we adapt to the changes that He allows to happen in our life.
mhm,
And I'm always looking for that positive thing that I can look at, at
mhm.
least this happened, or at least that happened, or at least I got a chance to, at least, and so that's how I look at it. So thank you for telling me that. I'm praying that it gets better.
And take every like you said, we read it, and stuff like that. And I would inbox more, and stuff like that. And sometimes I would even call a friend, But the thing is I had a relationships with because you think a lot of them boys hung out at my house because I was the parent that I didn't know where you was going, so I could watch and see what everything was going on. Y'all came over here.
Hmm.
That's how I that. And so some of them they grew up, and I know them, but that relationship's gonna come.
Now in high school, it was that way. Every weekend, I had a house full of boys. Oh my God, because they were
Mhm.
competing, and so they had competitions on the weekend. So they wanted to come to my house and hang out, and then we all go to the competition. I recorded, and they'd be laughing at me screaming because I would videotape it, and they could hear me screaming because the camera was so close. So those are the memories I'll never forget. Now he went to
Mhm.
college. I couldn't, make it like that because he was in Alabama, and then he went to Kentucky. So I was like, it was one of those things. Once he went to college, his I guess things started to change. But I know he loves me. There's a video on Facebook that he just reposted. He surprised me for Mother's Day, and I was running, and my son is 6'5" and strong as a
Wow.
strong. And I jumped on him, and he grabbed me like this, and I was like, I'll never forget that. That meant the world to me. And so I know it's there. but I don't know, what else to do other than just to be the mother that I am, to support
Mhm.
him. But I won't allow God to do whatever He's going to do as well.
Right.
So I continue to pray, and we talk. Like I talked to him the day after Mother's Day for an extended period of time. Um, but he's my one and only son, my
Mhm.
handsome man. So
Yeah, it
um,
goes. I'm telling you, I don't know what it's like to have, other than my granddaughters. I don't know which one's easier, boys or girls. But right now, I think it's the boys. I don't know. I don't know.
no, well,
Um,
girls, they were easy.
yeah, but it's something about. I love and that was one of the greatest gifts. I remember getting on him. He didn't even tell me he was having Kaya. They was having Kaya, but I found out. But that was one of the greatest gifts because I was actually going through so much, recently divorced and everything. She was my little girl. That, she was my buddy, hanging with me all the time and stuff like that. But and I thank them both for allowing me to be in her life that way. And, you know, and even like, even though he was out there and he wasn't, no one's perfect, but I remember the things that he did try to step in there with. And, when I was training for this job that I'm at now, I had to go away for 3 months, but I would come home for on the weekends and leave back out on Monday. I said, Mo, I need you to take care of your brother because he's got to go to school. And so he did. And I was telling a friend about this. I did learn it's not cool for a mom. Shy was getting, picked on the bus, and it's not cool for a mom to go on the bus. So every day, Moa stayed at that bus stop.
Not unless you Maria.
Yeah, yeah, right, yeah. So he stayed at the bus stop, and waited, for Shy. And he asked me, he said, "Somebody picking on my brother down here." Just having that male figure, because I think he knew what it was like not to have that to have that absence. And I remember getting off work, going to football games, to Shy's football games, and Shy would say, "Is Moa here?" I'd be like, "He's not here yet, but I'm here." But it was so, I'm here. I got off of work and I came,
Sibling bond.
but Moa's here. And then he see when he see Moa in the bleachers, but I'm sitting right beside Moa. But it's those things that he stepped in there and he's seen where he missed. And so those are things sometimes we have to know as women. Unfortunately, we can't give we can't give that young man everything that man can give. A mom can be nurturing, a mom can be love, but we don't really understand what they're going through.
Right.
We really don't. And it's real hard. And I would, any single parent on here, I pray that you could find, a mom, that you can find somebody in your church, because you definitely need somebody saved. You don't need somebody out there that's going to smoke with your kids or have them go the wrong way, because that happened with me as well. But they need that foundation. They need a male
They
figure.
do.
And I wished I would have found that for Moa and Shy's, to help out a lot.
Well, I thank God for my dad and my brother-in-law.
Hmm.
They were the ones that were that example for my son. Uncle Jerry, because when I worked at night, they would be over my sister and her husband's house. So Uncle Jerry was that man, and then my dad being the pastor and all. So it was kind of one of those things that he kind of was able to go to and talk to. Um,
Hmm.
you know, but as they get older, they come up with their own things. But at least that kind of helped him be a man, you know. And so I appreciate that and those examples that they did set for him, seeing them get up and knowing they going to work. And well, actually, my dad had retired at that time, but he knew he, would go to work and stuff. So my son, all of my children have a great work ethic, and so that's important.
That's good.
But then he also needed that person that could teach him how to be a man. And like you said,
Absolutely.
when it's missing, it's a little bit more difficult. We cannot do it.
Mm-mm.
That people tell me, "Are you the mom and the dad?" Well, actually, I know what they're saying. You did what you had to do to make things happen, and
Right.
that's what they're saying. So they're applauding you in one way, um, but I don't ever want to be that role for that child
Mhm.
or as a male, because I'm not. I'm a female, and I can only understand the nurturing part, the one that kind of say, "Baby, I got you." I'm gonna make
Mhm.
sure you do everything that you need to grow into that adult or be that adult. So when you go out into the world, you know how to face the world. So
Mhm.
you're right. You're right. Well, I thank you so much for
You're
sharing your
welcome. Thank you for having me.
experience. Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad you were able to do it, especially with it being Mental Health Awareness Month. People don't understand, and a lot of people don't want to go to a counselor. Oh, I ain't going. I ain't crazy. It's not that you're crazy. Sometimes you need to vent to a neutral third party that can
Absolutely.
give you the tools that the average person wouldn't have. They went to school for that. So thank you again. Um, and you all can reach her. She has, if you need to, at Kimberly, Sophia Kimberly on Facebook. She can help you through because she said some great things today, and some of the things I knew, some of the things I did not know. But in either case, you still have the hotline on the bottom that you can reach out to. And again, you have a great rest of the Sunday, and I'll see you later.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.
You too.
All
Bye.
right. Bye bye.